I started work on this story 6 months ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, when layoffs were layoffs, when have they not been, coming hot and heavy, and just with Intel recently and Dell as well. But you see all these press releases, you read the memos from the CEOs, streamlining, efficiency, blah, blah, blah. And then the SEC filing goes out and they say, we are taking a charge of X million for severance. I'm like, okay, there's got to be more to it than that, right? What's the true cost of a layoff? Because I've been laid off. And we've, either you've been laid off or you've done a layoff. I think all of our listeners fall into one of those two categories. And you see what happens to the survivors, the people who are still there. They're like zombies at times. They're worried about another layoff coming. They now have to do the work of 2 or 3 people. So, your engagement goes down, your morale goes down. You're kind of looking out the door like, maybe I should be down the street taking a job somewhere else.
Yeah, a lot of other people
exactly.
just leave because
so
they're like, listen, we're doing layoffs.
Exactly.
I need to get out of this business.
So we know that output declines. We know that quitting goes up. But how much does this actually cost? We just kind of see these as like intangibles. Like, well, it happens, but, we had to do this. So I'm like, somebody must put some numbers behind this. So I dug around and finally found, I found an actuary at the Department of Labor. I found academics who have studied this. I found a guy who studied 200 layoffs and figured out how much did the quitting rate increase after the layoff.
Matt, let's step back and first look at just the direct costs.
Sure.
Because you're talking about the whole ball of wax, right? But you lead your story with the Facebook firings, and I knew a couple of young people that Facebook brought over here from Europe to work, and then almost all of a sudden laid them off and sent them right back. They had great packages, and the whole thing was almost $1 billion, right? To lay off 11,000 employees. That's like $88,000 a person.
Exactly.
And that's just the severance, right?
Yeah. So I looked in their filing and they said, well, after we $975 million or whatever it was in severance.
It's real money.
But it's not material because we're saving all this money. We don't have to give any of these people bonuses next year, and we're saving this or that. And I'm like, there's got to be, again, more to it than that. So, but all we really know is how much they take in the charge for severance, which will cover, 2 weeks salary, healthcare continuation, outplacement, help with your resume. But again, the cost of a layoff goes so much further.
So what are the biggest indirect costs?
Yeah,
you got to bring in, I guess, Bain or McKinsey to make you feel better about it first, right? So you got to pay
another cost. Yeah, there you go. No, Matt Boyle will do it for you. So the biggest ones are reduced productivity, output goes down. So I went to a firm called Active Track, and like other firms, so they're one of the biggest ones. They track employee activity. Now, we've all heard about, they're watching your hours, they're surveilling you, and all these stories about employee surveillance. But employers do want to know, what you are doing on the company time. So this company was able to track pre and post layoff productivity at 7 anonymous firms. Obviously, I don't know who they are, but we saw exactly what happened to productivity, and it was usually about an hour a day less productive. So that's 18 hours a month. Turns out to be, for every 10,000, for a company with 100 employees, that means more than $50,000 lost in productivity every month until it finally reverts to normal, usually after 6 months, but sometimes, not 6 months. So that's one of the big ones. Another one is increased quitting. People are worried about their own job, and so so you have an increase in what's called voluntary attrition, quitting. Right. Now, companies always have a level of attrition normally. It's usually about 19%. So usually you are replacing 19% of your people just because they found something better in general. But when you do a layoff, your voluntary attrition can go up by 50%.
That's a lot.
That is a lot, yes.
Well, and I feel like on the other side of that, like if you need those workers that are leaving.
Yeah, those are the ones you want to keep. Exactly.
That to bring them in, to recruit them, then to retrain them. That's, again, another cost.
Yeah, so those are people you didn't want to lose in the first place. They're not the people you laid off. Then you have to recruit and train their replacements. So all that has a massive cost, and I was able to determine it. So you take a normal turnover rate, you figure out how much it costs to replace the people you lose, the increased incremental quits, as I was calling it, because it usually costs about 1.25x to replace a lost worker. So if you take, let's say, $65,000 average salary in the U.S., that's over $80,000 to replace them. Multiply that by the incremental quits. And at a 10,000 person company, you're talking about $75 million that you were not thinking you were going to spend to replace all these people.